The Ford Maverick has truly become America's sweetheart, as it won the hearts and souls of thousands of Americans. Its low price tag, honest appearance and utility, and patriotic brand are only a few of its virtues. However, the Maverick hasn't been quite as honest as we expected it to be, as it has an enormous share of quality control issues that hampered its reliability and even led to some catastrophic failures and recalls. To us, these quality issues are simply unacceptable, no matter the cost of the car, and if this continues, the Ford Maverick will have a huge problem in the future. The battery can lead to the Maverick stopping mid-drive. It's no secret that the Ford Maverick has been riddled with issues. However, it seems that the most recent one is by far the biggest of the bunch. You see, as of April, Ford decided to recall more than 450,000 Maverick hybrids and Bronco Sport hybrids due to their persisting battery issues. You see, these issues arise from the fact that the body and powertrain control modules on these two models can fail to detect a change in the battery's state of charge, which essentially results in a loss of electrical accessories, such as hazard lights, headlights, and other electrical peripherals. Now, as horrible as that sounds, these issues aren't exactly catastrophic per se. However, apart from electrical accessories, this issue could result in a complete loss of driving power, and since the car would turn off mid-drive, you'd also lose your steering and brakes, making the car practically inoperable and uncontrollable, which could result in a fatal crash. As a result, Ford urgently decided to recall these models as rapidly as possible. Now, we'd say good job, Ford, for being so ardent and devoted to fixing their issues. However, we won't do that because this isn't the first and only catastrophic problem the Maverick had. It isn't even the most fatal one, as that has to be the Maverick's tendency to spontaneously combust. It's frankly unbelievable how such a simple car can be such a headache to its owners. The Ford Maverick Hybrid's first major issue was the fact that the car could randomly go up in flames, which made most potential buyers and owners very hesitant about the truck's safety and reliability. The reason for this is the lowest possible build standard that the Ford Maverick is being made to. You see, because the Maverick was such a massive hit with the public ever since it was first released, Ford decided to cut corners so they could speed up production as much as possible. Although they did increase production figures, what they also did was decrease the time needed to properly inspect and test the individual features of the engine, which unfortunately led to it being so problematic and downright dangerous. Two main breaking points that led to the car burning down were the fact that both the engine block as well as the oil pan could breach. Such a situation led to gas, both as a fume and as a liquid, could escape from the engine, and when in contact with the exhaust manifold, could combust outside the ignition chamber. Furthermore, apart from the oil pan and the block being breached, there's also been a massive issue with the fuel tank, as it could also leak out fuel. And although this wasn't as dangerous as the other two issues, it still required its peculiar recall. Now, this would be an annoying reliability problem if the car in question was just internal combustion powered. However, since the hybrid requires batteries, and since lithium-ion batteries are extremely combustible, these issues could lead to the battery catching on fire and then spreading across the entire car, hypothetically engulfing all of its passengers. So instead of the properly honest commuter that Ford intended the Maverick to be, it seems that this truck is shaping up to be more of a Ford Pinto situation rather than anything else, especially with these going up in flames issues. Albeit, thankfully, Ford is doing something to mitigate this issue, instead of just giving money to those who were harmed. The Ford Maverick's interior build quality is abysmal. Before we move on, we have to say that expecting an exceptionally well-built car with premium materials at this price point isn't what we expect. It wouldn't be fair to judge Ford for making the car intentionally cheap to keep costs down. However, the Maverick's level of cheapness is just unrivaled. Seriously, the car that instantly comes to mind when we think of how poor the interior build quality is the poor old Mitsubishi Mirage, which has been regarded by many as one of the worst built cars currently on offer. Where should we start? First of all, the dashboard, The door panels and virtually every other surface are made out of entirely hard and scratchy plastics. And it looks to us that Ford decided to go for the cheapest possible plastic they could find, as the interior looks and feels extremely nasty. What's more, the panel gaps and the way the interior bits have been fitted to one another also leave a lot to be desired. Furthermore, the seats are also nothing to write home about. They are fairly comfortable, more so than what we expected. However, there have been notes of them creasing after less than 1,000 miles, which is simply unacceptable. Thankfully, though, Ford is coming to its senses, and the last model year has been a much-needed improvement, which we guess is because Ford managed to ease off the pressure on the production. What Ford didn't resolve, though, are the minor gripes and issues that keep on popping out. There are quite a lot of minor gripes and issues that you'll most likely experience and encounter when owning a Maverick. Honestly, there's nothing as irritating as those small issues that constantly keep pecking you in the head. One of the more well-known of these is the fact that the gauge cluster could randomly stop working. And since the Ford Maverick has a half-digital gauge cluster that serves as your main source of information, it's easy to see why this minor issue required a recall on its own. A whopping 64,000 Mavericks were recalled because of this, which is just unacceptable, especially since we've already covered some massive recalls of the Maverick. And this isn't even an isolated problem, as other minor problems just keep the experience of owning a Maverick a nauseating experience. One such issue is the side airbag malfunction, which happened because of faulty sensors. As a result, once again, more than 60,000 units have been recalled. Alongside this, the trailer tail lamp has also been known to malfunction. Another issue is the fact that the retaining nuts for the wheel hub extensions could eventually come loose because they weren't properly tightened, which should tell you more than you need to know about how well built the car is. Honestly, they should have called it the Ford recall instead of the Ford Maverick. However, the biggest problem with the Ford Maverick stems from a much more deeply rooted problem that cannot be fixed by increased quality control, and that is the fact that the Blue Oval's little pickup truck still doesn't offer any AWD hybrid. Why, Ford? Just why? The Maverick aches for an AWD hybrid, as it would make an already fuel-economic vehicle properly utilitarian. This way, you all but restricted the hybrid to be used as a city commuter, which completely defeats the purpose of a pickup truck. All-wheel drive would transform the hybrid pickup truck, as it would both allow it to be more controllable in the bends, as well as offer a much more reliable and controllable way of using its power and torque figures. Plus, it's not like they cannot make it because it's front-wheel biased. After all, the 2.0 EcoBoost version does come with AWD. Most people would argue that the 2.0 EcoBoost would be redundant if the hybrid got AWD as an option, as despite its noticeably greater torque and power figures, the MPG of the hybrid is just completely unmatched. Not to mention that it would also be a whole lot easier to make a hybrid AWD version, because the electric motor could power the rear wheels instead of the front ones. Generally speaking, it would be a system that's more or less similar to what Toyota offers with the RAV4 hybrid and other similar cars. However, because the rear of the truck is, of course, the truck bed, creating an AWD version would be impossible without either sacrificing bed space or creating a more complex hybrid system. The first reason is a no-go for obvious reasons, and the second one will never happen because that would, for one, increase the price of the truck, and also because the Maverick shares its platform with the Ford Escape and the Bronco Sport. Changing the Maverick would also require re-engineering the other two cars, which would be way too expensive for Ford. And although the Ford Maverick is due for a redesign that will fix most of these previously mentioned issues, we highly doubt that it will introduce all-wheel drive to the hybrid.